Hi there. I am so glad you're here. My name is Michelle, and this video today is intended to offer a bit of background about trauma sensitive yin yoga. Its background, what it is, and also what you might expect from potentially engaging with this type of practice. And if you're new to the channel here or just exploring, you might notice that there are some practices labeled as trauma sensitive yin yoga. And so I thought it could be helpful to provide a bit of background here if you're new to yin yoga or yoga in general, just so you have a bit of expectations perhaps, or brief understanding about what this practice might offer. And so the intention for this video itself and kind of the flow of the content is to perhaps provide initially sort of a definition, an initial foundation and background of what yin yoga is, and then perhaps moving into the trauma sensitive lens and element of the practice that is facilitated here on this channel. And then maybe ending with maybe some potential benefits or experiences that you might interact with or engage with through this practice. And maybe before getting into that initial definition and background, I'd like to just offer that my personal understanding of yin yoga is really influenced by the teachers of Paul Grilley, Sarah Powers, and Bernie Clark. And then my training as a trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga facilitator offers that TCTSY framework and foundation that really informs and translates into how I show up and facilitate yin yoga through this trauma-sensitive lens. Also, I am currently continuing my education, eternal, ongoing student, I like to say, and I'm currently in the middle of a neurosomatic intelligence training program that's steeped in applied neurology and the work of somatics. And so as I've been working with this material and content, with learning about my own nervous system, engaging and building a relationship with my own nervous system in my own way, I've noticed that this work is starting to integrate into everywhere that I show up. So elements of this neurosomatic training is definitely will be integrated and interwoven within how I show up and facilitate this type of content. So I wanted to offer that bit of background, and as I continue to grow and change and evolve, I imagine how I facilitate will kind of follow that trajectory too and evolve over time. And so perhaps now maybe moving into a little dive into what yin yoga is. I pulled together a few notes that I might reference here on my phone. So you might see my eyes move back and down a bit, just so you're aware. So yin yoga is a slow, contemplative style of practice that emerged in the late 20th century through the teachings of Paul Grilley, and was further developed and shared by teachers such as Sarah Powers and Bernie Clark, who I previously mentioned were kind of a foundation of where I began learning about the practice as well, through my training at my home yoga studio and the special yin certification I was focused on for my training. So the practice is rooted in both traditional yoga and Taoist philosophy. Yin yoga focuses on longer held, more passive style shapes that might gently apply a mindful, appropriate amount of stress to your body's deeper tissues, connective tissues like your fascia system, ligaments, joints. And perhaps within the actual yin yoga practice, there might be cues offered inviting you to maybe notice felt sensation somewhere in your body during these longer yin shapes. Sometimes they're timed for maybe 3 to 4 minutes each, sometimes more or less depending on the form. And while you're in the shape, there might be that invitation. Maybe notice felt sensation somewhere. Maybe tuning in if you might notice contraction in any muscle groups within your body, perhaps an invitation to soften, perhaps some of those larger muscles, maybe allowing that positive, intentional stress to sink deeper beyond those larger muscle groups into these connective tissues, your fascia system, your ligaments, all of that intricate web of tissues holding your whole being together. That could be a cue or offering within the practice itself that's related to this opportunity of maybe growing more spaciousness within your body and tending to those connective tissues. Bernie Clark's specific influence emphasizes a functional approach to your body, recognizing that each person's anatomy is unique and that shapes are not meant to look a certain way, but to create an appropriate level of sensation for the individual. Sarah Powers expanded the practice by integrating elements of traditional Chinese medicine, including meridian theory, the energetic pathways within your body, along with mindfulness and meditative awareness, inviting practitioners to observe internal experience with curiosity and presence. Together, these perspectives shape yin yoga as both a physical and contemplative practice, one that invites stillness, awareness, and a personalized experience of each shape rather than striving to perform or striving to position your body into a specific form. And those few kind of final notes offered there really, I feel, is a perfect lead into this kind of trauma-sensitive approach to facilitating yin yoga. The practice itself already leans that direction with that particular statement that it's not about striving to achieve a certain shape, put your body in a specific position. It's not about performance or achievement. The words are very intentional too. You notice maybe using the word shape as opposed to a yoga pose. That's very intentional with the practice to maybe take out the context that can be wrapped up in pose being related to performance and achievement, and shape perhaps being a bit more open for interpretation of someone's own unique experience within their body. So that already has the lean towards trauma-sensitive language and approach there. The TCTSY background that I have my training in, and I do have another video on the channel for if you're interested in diving deeper into what TCTSY framework exactly is, its foundation, a bit of its history. That is on the channel, and I'll provide a link to that in the notes of this video as well. But that TCTSY framework, the 5 pillars of that framework, is really the foundation that I pull from and integrate within everywhere that I facilitate. I feel they also inform how I show up as a human, interacting in relationship with other humans. And those 5 pillars are invitational language, choice making, shared authentic experience, interoception, and creating a non-coercive environment. And so those are all informing how I facilitate and add those additional kind of trauma-sensitive layers into how I facilitate yin yoga. And perhaps another note that could be layered in here, even with around the word yin itself, if you might think of the symbol, the yin yang symbol, and those balancing energies with each other, their interplay. Yang being a bit more related to heat building, more upregulating, more energy building, and then the yin being the counterpart of a cooling practice, slower, perhaps a bit more down regulating. If you think of the nervous system, yang perhaps more sympathetic activation, yin a bit more parasympathetic activation. And that interplay that's always present within a human body, and how the yin is perhaps an invitation into a slowing down, a pause amidst your day-to-day routines and roles. And that kind of leads into what this type of practice might offer as potential benefit or experience. It is that invitation of slowing down, maybe to a pace that could maybe align with meeting your nervous system, where your nervous system is at in that moment. Perhaps a bit of a different pace from what the modern Western world might be demanding of you in those different roles you might hold. Perhaps an opportunity to connect with your body in some way, maybe perhaps through felt sensation, maybe in a muscle or a ligament, or maybe noticing spaciousness somewhere in your body. Any potential felt sense, even for a moment, an opportunity to potentially experience embodiment within your own body. It might be an opportunity of, over time in your own practice, perhaps there's different physical changes that might become aware, whether there's, again, more spaciousness, more mobility or range of motion over time. Maybe it's more of a contemplative practice for you. You might notice more space beginning to grow in your mind, maybe between thoughts passing through, or perhaps between emotions coming to the surface. Maybe a bit more space or spaciousness to hold the wholeness of you and your experience. And this practice is really for anyone interested in maybe that opportunity of noticing your own body in some way. It might be an offering for those who might be navigating a lot of stress, maybe high-paced environments, offering a bit of balance to that higher-paced, fast-paced energy, that invitation to slow down, come back to presence, inviting yourself to your body, and you're in the moment, each moment brand new. Maybe it's for those who might be experiencing chronic illness, or really anyone who might be interested in exploring perhaps a gentler, slower approach to a potential movement practice. And so if any of that might be in alignment or resonate with you in any way, please feel free to explore any of those practices on the channel labeled as trauma-sensitive yin yoga, exploring, experimenting in your own unique practice and experience. And if you feel it might align with anyone in your community, please feel free to share in any way or engage with this content in any way. I am so grateful that you might consider expanding wider access to this trauma-sensitive content, and I'm so deeply grateful to be here in time and space with you, sharing in community, even through the ethers. We are here together, and that means so much to me. So thank you again, and I am always wishing you well. Thank you.